Um, I'm not gonna go through this point for point. Play the video, pause it, stop it. Give commentary because it's just gonna take up too much time. I'm just gonna summarize the highlights, and this is that interview with uh, Cornell West, Candace Owens, and who's the Proud Boy founder? What's his name? Gavin McGinnis. So I guess there was a previous debate that they had. I didn't see that one. I'm only going off of this second debate. And Cornell West and Candace, have um, this exchange, and I give both of them respect, for doing it. And then Gavin McGinnis was, it was more like 2-on-1, but Gavin was kind of being, I shouldn't even say he was being a moderator, but he was behind the bars, and then more of the exchange was Candace Owens and Cornell West. Um, Candace, in my opinion, was just coming on there with her typical talking points, while Cornell West was actually listening, processing, and then responding to what she was saying. But she was just eager to get all her talking points out, because the cameras are on, and we all know that Candace is trying to get the bag, and she's just basically a shill for conservatives, and her whole you know mission objective is to basically get all the things that typically white conservatives want to hear. And they're like, oh, Candace for president, right? Those people. Oh, Candace is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Oh, everything says is just fantastic. And these are the white people that are always eager to try to get you to co-sign Candace. Look, what do you think of Candace Owens? Like, I think Candace Owens is a fucking shill for the Republican Party. That's what I think. But anyway, there was a number of things that Candace said throughout, her, exchange with Cornell West that really, in my opinion, uh, punched gaping holes in her own ideology, and it was her own rhetoric that was doing it. It was everything that she was saying, because when you don't think for yourself and you're grabbing talking points off of the shelf, you don't realize that you just contradicted yourself. But anyway, let's start at the beginning. First thing that got on my nerves is the thing that always gets on my nerves is when you have people who jump up and say that the Republicans were the party of Abraham Lincoln and freed the slaves, and the Democrats, that's the party of the Ku Klux Klan, right? And I've said time and time again that the parties switched. Republicans love to jump up and tell you that the parties didn't switch. I've seen all of them do it. I mean, from Ben Shapiro to the freaking Indian guy, I don't know what it was named, DeSouza or whatever his name. They all do the same bullshit. PragerU, they all do the same crap. But at the end of the day, as I've said a million times, nobody moved, nobody migrated. The people who are white Southerners today who vote Republican, and you see it on the maps every election, right? If you're a white man in Georgia, your grandfather and your great grandfather were Democrats, racist Southern Democrats that didn't want to integrate the schools because they wanted to keep their schools white. They were on that, Bull Connor shit, segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever, right? That's what they were on. That's why the sentiments of Dixiecrats in the 1950s and the 1960s is identical to white Southern conservative Republicans today. They still harbor those same racist feelings. That's why Southern Republicans today will say heritage, not hate, when they want to talk about their monuments or they want to talk about their Confederate flag. Heritage, not hate. Yeah, exactly. You're a part of that bloodline. So the way that they try to disassociate themselves from the Dixiecrats is just totally intellectually dishonest and disingenuous. Hmm. Moving on from that, McGinnis and Candace were both overly concerned with the LGBT and they're grooming children and the drag queen stuff and everything, which I don't agree with. All that weird stuff, LGBT. I'm not an LGBT proponent. You're talking, you know, what is it? 3% of the population when you want to talk about homosexuals, and you're talking less than 1% of the population when you're talking about people, who are transgender or AKA body dysmorphia, right? And so, as I've said before, to me, it's just a distraction for that the Democrat Party wants to throw up because they don't want to address black people's issues, even though black people are the ones that vote them in the office. So they throw up the gays, they throw up the LGBT, they try to make themselves look as diverse as possible because they can throw, the LGBT community a whole bunch of symbolism. Even if the LGBT community makes any demands that are, you know, supposed to be tangible, it's such a small population that it doesn't really mean anything. It's insignificant versus, 41 million black people making demands. That's going to cost you some shmoney. And they don't want to have to address that, whether it's money, whether it's resources, whether it's land, whatever. The reparations for slavery talk, they want to get as far away from that as possible. And that's the Democrat Party because as far as I'm concerned, the conservatives versus the liberals is nothing more. The Republicans and Democrats are nothing more than the right and left arm of the system of white supremacy. Now, getting on with Gavin McInnes and Candace Owens talking points about the LGBT community and what children being indoctrinated and all this other stuff, right? They were throwing we're Christians and we believe this and da 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 da, right? And you know how I feel about Christianity. I think it's bogus, bunch of bullshit. But whatever, that's their moral compass that they want to come in because it gives them what do you want to call that? It gives them license. It gives them whatever the credentials to speak on some shit. I hate people who do that, who try to trump every argument with, well, I'm a Christian and I'm holding the moral torch, and therefore everything that I'm going to say from this moment forward is going to be more valid and more, righteous and sanctimonious than anything that you have to say, right? I hate that crap. Especially when having an intellectual conversation. But anyway, their concern was that all this LGBT and the stuff that the left is doing is destroying families and busting up families, and that's why marriage rates are down, and all this crap, right? And they bring up the welfare state. Karen just brought up the welfare state and talking, and that contributed to destroying the black family and busting up homes, and right, and these sort of half truths. But Cornell West got her at the end when she brought up her cousin who works at Starbucks. Now, how your Candace? Imagine that you're working at Starbucks. Oh, my cousin is Candace Owens. Hi, welcome to Starbucks. Like, really? Like, she can't, like, Candace, I looked online, says she has a net worth of $1 million. I'm like, really? You can't find something for your cousin to do that you talk to on a regular basis and she works at Starbucks and got a raise at Starbucks? And Cornell West was, I mean, he was getting her on, the reality of the fact that it's not a livable wage because they were trying to come with this trickle down economics and all that stuff, right? And this is where Candace basically told on herself. And I don't even think she really thinks it all the way out. She's just trying to regurgitate these talking points, right? That even the crazy thing is white working class people somehow subscribe to the same thing. It's they can't get past their own bigotry and their own racism to realize, like, hey, maybe we need to work together in order so that we all can make more money and live in better neighborhoods and live in better conditions. Like, it's like, no, like their racism will not allow them to form Voltron, especially with black people. It doesn't matter whether I'm talking about putting, 40,000 more dollars in their pocket. Like, no, that doesn't matter. So the Republicans have this weird way of thinking like they're the that white rural Americans are like the only hardworking Americans, and that they believe in the trickle down economics, even though like you can show everything statistically speaking that will highlight that that people are worse off today than they were back in the 1950s. Right? There was this video that I was watching of I forget what the guy's name. What if history or something like that. He's got some slight bullshit in there where he comes at especially black people. I was going to address one of the things that he said about SAT scores and shit like that, but that's in another video. I'll do that later. But he brought up a marvelous point about Homer Simpson and how Homer Simpson, in the 80s and the 90s, Homer Simpson was this this buffoon. Homer Simpson was Al Bundy, right? And even Al Bundy, that would be another example. He works at a shoe store. And it's like, and you make enough money to have a house in the suburbs and raise two kids and have, I don't know what his wife did. Was she a stay-at-home wife? But anyway, the point is that Homer Simpson, if you really look at Homer Simpson, even though they played him, in the back in the 80s and the 90s, as this buffoon. This is like the beginning of all the incompetent fathers and whatnot. Where back in like the 50s and the 60s, Leave It to Beaver and Father Knows Best. But anyway, I'm saying let's look at Homer Simpson's economic situation. Homer Simpson worked at a nuclear power plant. Homer Simpson had a stay-at-home wife. Homer Simpson was raising 3 children in the suburbs with a stay-at-home wife. He was the only income. And how is it that Homer Simpson was able to do that? How much money was Homer Simpson making? Like, nobody asked that question. How much money was Homer Simpson making in order to live that lifestyle? You see? And the fact is that today's a lot of Gen what is it, millennials and Gen Z, that shit is out of reach. Where you go back to 1950s, guys come back from World War II, FHA loans, they're able to move into a $10,000 Levitt home that grows in equity over the next 30 years, right? They can take equity out of the home, start small businesses, send their kids to college, right? And then sell the house at a profit. Right now, you got J.P. Morgan, getting a $1 billion worth of credit or whatever it is, so that they can go out there and purchase all the single family homes and turn everybody into renters. But yet you have Republicans and the parrot talkers like Candace Owens talking about trickle down economics. Trickle down economics works. Your grandparents and your great grandparents had more than today's young people at a young age. People were buying and purchasing homes at 25 and 30 years old. A lot of young people today are just getting their life started after they, are sold the idea to go to college and get these degrees and put themselves in debt with nothing to show for it but debt. But here's the part that really got me. Since they were so hyper focused on, LGBT and how it's affecting the kids and busting up the homes, and there's this moral decay that's going on, right? If you're conservative and you're a Bible thumper, let's just go with the idea, whether you want to be Bible thump and or however you want to put it, you're a Bible thumper or you're a conservative or you're both, and your primary concern is intact, traditionally oriented, patriarchal family structures. What do you think is disrupting the households more? The shit that you see with the LGBT, which is basically only been within the last couple of years that they've made this big push in the media and whatnot, with transgender and gender fluidity and all that nonsense, or men not being gainfully employed? And see, Candace, as far as I'm concerned, she fucked up when she started talking about her cousin working at Starbucks and talked about her raise increase. And she, when Cornell pressed her on it, she was like, "Well, I mean, she felt that it was enough." See, again, livable wages. And I like to specify. I like what Captain Solo said: house buying wages. She ain't making house buying wages, working at Starbucks. She's not. And I don't know what her other cousins do because she brought up her other cousin. She didn't. I don't think she specified, what their careers were. But she was pushing the whole trickle down economics model. And the crazy thing with that, see, you have to specify with these people. You can't just leave shit open because they're going to whittle you down to nothing and tell you that should be enough, that should suffice, despite the fact that when you crunch the real numbers, it doesn't suffice. If your primary concern is traditionally oriented Christian, homes or households that have a Christian moral framework, I don't care whether you have a Christian moral framework or not. You're not going to have intact traditional homes of any religious orientation if you don't have men who are gainfully employed in the home. And if the men aren't making more money than the women, then it's not going to be a traditional home. So, as much as it makes no sense for conservatives like Candace and even Gavin to sit up there and talk about how much they're hyper focused on creating more intact nuclear families, and they don't want to talk about men being gainfully employed. And this is what's done all the time when it comes to the conservatives. They always want to turn economic arguments into moral arguments. It's about morality. It's not about more money, right? And then you'll have regular, everyday, just simply conservative white Americans that will literally sit there and co-sign the shit. And they got bills and all type of stuff that they can't pay for. Like, it's mind-boggling. And the funny thing is right, the people on the right act like they don't like alternative lifestyles, right? But as soon as you get into actually paying people in order for them to meet the standards of the traditional framework that they like to espouse all the time, that's when they suddenly want you to subscribe to some alternative reality or some alternative lifestyle because they go, oh shit. Like, so they sell you the idea. They've been selling the idea of this, this Homer Simpson situation, right? Bunch of young men, they're like, yeah, I'm going to go out here, get my shit together, go do this, go do that, get married, settle down, take care. But all that costs money. But since the people on the conservative end don't want to pay people, I'm like, well, how are you upholding these sort of family structures? In other words, these young people have no choice but to, subscribe to alternative lifestyles and alternative family structures and ways of being. And truth be told, these, conservative types, they have no problem with that as long as they get to maintain, the whole idea of not having to pay people what they clearly don't want to pay them. This is why I don't even subscribe to the religious stuff, because it's irrelevant to this topic. I don't care whether you got the sweet twinkle of white Jesus in your eye or not. It's not going to change the reality of somebody who is hell bent on not paying people. Either way you go, whether you want to talk about, the liberals and all their, goofy shit, LGBT, KRXYZ, whatever the hell it is, right? And how that's busting up the family. And then you go over to the conservatives and they're like, oh yeah, we gotta have strong families, da 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 da. But then they don't want to pay to have gainfully employed men who can be in the position of Homer Simpson and take care of those families. It's the craziest shit in the world. The other thing that Candace, said, in trying to dodge the whole money, was talking about her taxes and being taxed at 75%, and she would leave the country. Oh, you would leave the country. Oh, where is Candace Owens' patriotism now? It's always funny to me when you get these people that are like, well, if they tax me, I'm going to leave the country. All of a sudden, I love America and the patriotism goes right out the door. Right? And the funny thing is where would you even go as somebody who talks like Gavin and talks like Candace? Where in the world would you even go? I'm sure they don't even know where any of the tax havens are. But where would you could start with Barbados, you could start with St. Kitts, Nevis, you could start with Monaco, right? Those are some of the tax havens that exist. But I'm saying let's go with the general idea of what they would probably say. They probably say Europe. I'm like, can't move to Europe. Europe is socialist. Y'all bitch about Europe being socialist all the time, right? You can't go to Russia, right? You'll say, Putin is a dictator. There's no freedom there. There's no freedom of speech there. So even if Candace wanted to set up an internet connection, she couldn't just freely say what she wanted to say in Russia. China, communism. You know how they hate communism, right? I mean, where would they go? Africa? Oh, Africa, the land of shithole countries, right? I mean, where would they go? Latin America, maybe? Canada? They don't like Canada. Socialism. Trudeau, oh, he's socialist. Ah, where would they go? I mean, just pick a place in the world. Japan? Maybe they go to Japan. But where would they? Where would they live? Right? And then on top of that, where would they, with the tax dollars they want to save? Where would they? What do you think? You're gonna make a YouTube channel living in Kazakhstan, and that you're gonna get paid in U.S. dollars? Is that what you think is gonna happen? Right? Like it's like like there's we're leaving, like and don't even like like where are you going? Like seriously, like where are you going without your American flag? Like where the hell are you going, and where are you going to be able to make the money that you make, like the money that you make in America, sitting on the internet running your lips? Seriously, like where is this going on? But you talk about Brittany Griner, Colin Kaepernick. They're un-American. They're so un-American. If you don't like it here, then leave. Right? That's what these people say. Like Candace. But the minute you start talking about, her being taxed, right, or the wealthy being taxed, which she puts herself in that category, then all of a sudden it's I'm taillights. I'm out of here. I'm going somewhere else. Where is her or Gavin's patriotism now? We love America. Where is it now? Like I said, the whole I got it. I don't always agree with Cornell West. He says a couple irritating things here and there. Um, I think he did an excellent job of explaining the difference between what was it? Was it being Democrat? What was it? Being Democrat and being liberal or something like that. Um, he broke that down. Saying like, and he brought up the military industrial complex, and he's like, neither party wants to address that shit. I mean, you're so concerned about welfare, but yet we spend more money. I think he said 61 cents to the dollar on the military industrial complex. But you ain't bitching about that. But you're bitching about welfare. You see, like, he was just knocking it out the park because he was listening and responding, not just coming with talking points like Candace was coming with. Trying to think if there's anything else that was that was something where he really drove the point home. I mean, the bottom line is somehow Gavin and Candace want to maintain intact patriarchal homes without paying people, without people being gainfully employed with house buying wages, because they believe in trickle down economics. And they think that the welfare state and the LGBT ideology is what disrupts the family somehow more than people being, namely men, being unemployed and underemployed. I mean, even if you wanted to address the whole welfare issue, then there should be no objection to people being gainfully employed. I didn't say people sitting home and being paid, unionized wages for doing nothing. No, I said that they need to be gainfully employed. The money that they're making and what they can do with that money should reflect, the 1950s and 60s, if anything. It should be closer to that, where you have somebody who at 18 years old could graduate high school, and then start working somewhere, and then shortly after purchase a home, get married and start a family. People want to wonder why the average age of marriage now is now pushed back to, I think it's like 29 for women and then 31 for men. Somewhere in that ballpark, it's late 20s, early 30s. When we look at our grandparents and our great grandparents, when were they getting married? They were getting married much younger, in their late teens, early 20s. And by the time they were 30, they popped out, 4 and 5 kids. That's a completely different dynamic for millennials and zillennials. It's a completely different dynamic. And it's going to get worse as time goes on, as we enter the phase of you will own nothing and be happy. So, unfortunately, uh, it's like, I can address the conservatives and to me, I mean, the liberals, they just don't listen. They're just like, regardless of what you say, because they have their, own agenda. Conservatives think they're making sense, but I feel like they're equally as in an echo chamber, because I'm like, okay, you say you want this, you're mad at this, you're mad at the welfare state, you're mad at the decline of the nuclear family, you want to throw the Bible all over the place, but then when I say, okay, well, the way we fix that is to have young men being gainfully employed to take care of their families, you scoff at the idea. So what are we going to fix? What are we going to fix the families with? The nuclear families with morals alone? I love these. I love these arguments. Morals in a vacuum. You know what I mean? Somebody's just holds the Bible to their chest. And see, this is where they whittle you down to nothing. And this is why I say that religion and all that crap is a political tool used against people, to get them to turn what should be a conversation about tangibles into a conversation about the spiritual and the intangible. And it's just, it's like you got these two scales, or this one scale, and on one side you got morality, on the other side uh um you got money, right? You gainful employment, all the tangible stuff. And for some reason, because it's probably just because the way that religion is oriented, to rid yourself of worldly possessions and money, and the pursuit of money is the root of evil and all that other stuff. And so people would rather virtue signal. I mean, especially when you put it against the backdrop of existing in eternity by making the right choice, right? Choose wisely, like in Indiana Jones and the Holy Grail. Choose wisely. So you have survival in one hand, and you have, you know, um, uh, your virtue signaling in the other. And a lot of people choose the virtue signal. So they want to be poor and pious and like Jesus. And then they wonder why they can't discipline their kids, or they wonder why, things are falling apart in the community, or why there's, 3 generations of junk on the porch, right? Or why there's 3 or 4 broke down cars in the driveway, because they don't because as we used to say before, when you don't have resources, things that become broken stay broke. because you don't have the resources to fix them. I don't care what your spiritual orientation is. I don't care what God you serve. If you don't have the tangible resources, you can there's a whole bunch of problems that you can't correct. And so what Candace and Gavin are talking about ultimately is going to lead to more social decay. I don't know. I don't see where all this, oh, well, if we just put Christ in the schools, again, more, well, let's do anything and everything that's not going to cost us. You have to pay attention. I don't care whether you're conservative or liberal. You have to pay attention to that. No, no. I mean, notice like when as a regular everyday American, as an everyday person, when shit happens in your life and it needs to be corrected, you show me where it's not going to cost you money. Oh shit, I got to get new brakes. That's going to cost you money. Oh shit, my car broke down. I got to get oil change or something. Oh, that's going to cost you money. Oh shit, my son needs freaking cleats, for football. That's going to cost you money. Oh, my daughter needs a new flute for band. Oh, that's going to cost you money. Everything costs money. But yet somehow, when we get to what the powers that be convince people, they love to convince you that it doesn't cost money. Like it's like a one way street. They try to convince you that it doesn't cost money, but it does cost money. And the money only moves in one direction, from you to them. But it never moves from them to you. Like in other words, yeah, I hear you, Candace and Gavin, on we need to have more intact communities. Yeah, okay, yeah, and so where's the money coming from so that we can do that, right? It goes back to the people who say, the people are only as good as the world allows you to be, and what allows you to be that way are resources, plain and simple resources. And unbeknownst to me, a Christian actually showed me a passage in the library or excuse me, in the Bible, not the library, in the Bible that actually highlighted the importance of resources. I said, oh shit, well look at this. So a lot of the Christians that are espousing this, it's not about the money shit, they haven't even read the damn book that they espouse. I'll try to find the I'll try to find the scripture and I'll put it in the description box. But nah, it's just funny looking at all this, listening to all this stuff because I'm like the contradictions are just boundless. I mean, they're just and they're everywhere. They're everywhere. I'm like, you're not gonna get around. I say it a million times. I'm like, you're not gonna get around me with the money. People again, it's like conservatives want stuff. I'm like, you just expect people to just behave and act like they have the tangibles of what you know middle class white Americans had in the 1950s, which they don't have today. Millennials and zillennials don't have today, and yet you're surprised that the kids are coming out messed up. That you got you know black kids that are joining gangs and committing acts of violence, and you got white kids that are shooting up schools and shooting up supermarkets, right? You're surprised about that, right? When you have parents that are struggling to provide a proper solid foundation. I mean, I don't have to get into the feminism and all that stuff and the other aspects of the left agenda that disrupts families. I'm not disagreeing that the left does things to disrupt the family, but you're not correcting the family structure by sitting there talking about trickle down economics, and we're not going to pay men to be gainfully employed in order to be in Homer Simpson's position. You see, and the whole problem is that capitalism doesn't really allow for everybody to play that position because somebody's got to pump the gas. Somebody has to make next to nothing so that, people who are using other people's labor to get wealthy can get wealthy. But those people are still having families, having kids, and I'm saying it may not be a traditionally oriented family because things fall apart. A woman saying to herself, why should I submit? Why should I get married to this man because he doesn't have this, that, and the third? Right? But people will still be out here fucking and sucking. People will still be out here having babies. That's just the reality. So you end up with all these babies with no proper foundation. And then we throw our hands up and go, oh, why are these people dysfunctional? I know what it is. It's because we took Jesus out of the schools. Not because this man's pumping gas and he's only making, you know, $8 an hour pumping gas or some shit like that. It's like people just they don't see that. And as the middle class shrinks and you have more people growing up in poverty, guess what? You're going to have more dysfunction. You're going to have more crime. You're going to have more prisons that need to be built. You're going to have a overclogged and backlogged criminal justice system. You're going to have, the same thing that people are bitching about. Oh, lock them up and throw away the key. Lock them up and throw away the key. And currently right now the prisons don't have they're not able to warehouse that many people. And then the problem's never going to go away because the way that the American justice system is set up, okay, you get locked up, you're a felon, you have a criminal history. Then even if you try to go out there and clean your act up and go and get a job and be gainfully employed, the employers will discriminate against you because you have a criminal record. So then that only leaves you back to a life of crime and leads you back to recidivism, and leads you back into the prison industrial complex. But again, these men, that are at this lower rung of the socioeconomic ladder also, have women that are in that are their reflection at the lower rung of socioeconomic ladder. And, many of them will continue to have children and have kids, and those households will be broken and dysfunctional. And then you will have to deal with that next generation of kids. This is why you ended up with certain, elite circles, and they were elite people, like Margaret Sanger, who pushed the whole, abortion, and pushed the whole idea of, the eugenics and reducing the population because, and I mean, you got to really look into it. I know there's some people that they know all the names and all these people from, the late 18th century and 19th century, but that was a big concern, for the well-to-do of the day, that there were too many poor people having kids and that they were going to be severely outnumbered and that there weren't enough resources for them to maintain their lifestyle and sustain the masses, at a level to where they wouldn't, have a revolution or rebel or riot or whatever you want to call it. So I'm just saying, this is what we're dealing with right now. And Candace's argument really, I mean, it really wasn't an argument. I mean, she contradicted herself right in her own argument. And Gavin sat there and, he sitting there co-signing it. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, you want intact families. You blame welfare. You blame LGBT. But at the same time, you don't want to pay people. You're talking about my cousin works at Starbucks and she was happy with her raise. And we all know those raises, those 30 cent an hour raises, like that's going to change somebody's life. Oh, you've been working here for 6 months. And because of your hard work and due diligence, we're now increasing your pay from $7.30 to $7.60. Congratulations. Everybody, let's give a round of applause for Rebecca. Like, what are you going to do with that? This is why you have all these women now that are scrambling. They only want to deal with the top 10%. They don't want to deal with regular guys because they know regular guys can't make it. They know a guy making $40,000 can't purchase a home, even though that's what the average income is. He can't purchase a home. He can't start a. He can't do anything. You know what I mean? It'll be a life of struggle. And so, the women are saying, hey, if I'm young and attractive or whatever, let me go and get with Andrew Tate. I'd rather be one of the women in his harem than to go out here and be with a regular dude that, is barely making it and can't afford a home and is only looking at 30-cent raises every 6 months or a year, because, let Candace tell us trickle down economics works. It's delusional. Anyway, that's all I got to say. That's my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe. I'm telling you, it's like now that, it's not a reality anymore for most people. Now they don't want anybody to be on the American dream. Because people who are on the American dream, if they ever wake up that they can't do what the dream was, like, in other words, you sell people the idea of the dream, and then when they wake up to the reality that they don't have any of the necessary tools to facilitate that dream, then you tell them that, oh, well, you need to change your dream. I mean, it's the same thing that, people, oh, my child, oh, what is wrong? Oh, father, I'm looking for, this career, this job, or, oh, my child, come, let us pray. Let us pray. Okay. Comes back the next day. Your father, it still hasn't happened. Well, my child, you must pray harder. Okay. Prays harder, right? Does that for the next month. Comes back one day and says, look, father, hey, I'm struggling out here. This really isn't working. And then what does the father say? What does the pastor say? Well, my child, perhaps that is not the path for you. And that's literally what they're doing, with the American dream. They sold the American dream. Now they're, getting everybody on paid subscriptions. Again, you will own nothing and be happy. I mean, you can see it all over the place. You see it with the video game industry, with loot boxes and paid subscriptions and seasonal passes. You see it with BMW, and they were trying to get people to pay for the heated seats. $18 a month for heated seats that are already in the vehicle, but in order to unlock the heated seats, you got to pay a subscription. Right? You see this with the Netflix and all. Instead of going out to the store and buying DVDs of movies so that you actually own the physical copy, no, I'd rather just sit on my couch and do the convenience of Netflix. Right? So again, you will own nothing and be happy. And then what is the other thing? Again, JP Morgan, $1 billion, buying up single family homes, Blackstone buying up single family homes, and then they're going to rent them to you. Right? Because the way that things are going, they know that none of you are going to be able to afford a 30-year mortgage. They know that you're not going to be able to afford that. You see? And I don't even know how, people were commenting saying, well, you answered your own question saying that Blackstone was buying the properties from all the boomers, and what are they going to do with those big ass houses? They're gonna rent those big ass house. How much would that be to rent a big ass house like that? No, I'll tell you what they'll do. They'll take those single family homes and they'll chop them up, and they'll have 4 or 5 families cram packed. This will be your section of the house, and this will be yours. I mean, they'll take houses in the suburbs, chop a big ass house up in the suburbs, and turn it and put multiple entrances on it, and turn that have 4 families living in that motherfucker. This is where shit is going. And you got people like Candace and McGinnis sitting there, trickle down economics, it works, and see, the problem is these liberals, and they just want everything for free, and they want participation awards. I'm like, okay. Cap and I, we got a joke going because he heard my video where I was talking about they're telling, like, the what's that Dave, what's that guy's name? Is it Dave Ramsey? What's that guy's name? The guy, the guy that does the economic shit. He's got the yellow and gold background, the Ramsey show. He's up there. The guy called in talking about, if you're not making more than $25 an hour, you're really struggling. And then there was another video where he was calling everybody wusses and lazy and all this other shit. And it's like, I'm like, isn't it funny? And I told white people this forever. I'm like, they're doing the same thing to you that they did to us. We're the canaries in the coal mines. Anytime black people have economic issues, oh, it's because they're lazy. They don't want to do anything. They're a bunch of do nothings, this, that, and the third, right? And then white people, they feel proud. Oh, yes, we're hardworking Americans. Well, now they're telling you the same shit. And it reminds me of Paul Mooney, when Paul Mooney was like, you tell our grandkids to go to the back of our badass grandkids, you tell them to go to the back of the bus. There won't be a bus. And the same thing, I would have to give a warning to the white boomers. I'm like, yeah, you go tell your grandkids, you go tell young white men that they're lazy. There won't be a capital. Go tell them that they're lazy. There won't be a country, because they're not going to tolerate that. And again, you're the ones that sold them the American dream. And then on top of that, they have white entitlement that says, wait a minute, I'm supposed to have this. I'm supposed to have that. And now you're going to stand there and change the story around and say that the reason why your 29-year-old grandson can't get his life together is because he's lazy. Not because employers don't want to pay, not because Candace Owens with her trickle down economic, not because of that, right? Even though he has, college loans out the nose to pay back, right? Because you wanted him to go to college because, you're a young white man from the suburbs. I mean, it's only right that you go to college and get a 4-year degree, even though 4 years degrees are the equivalent to high school diplomas now that so many people have them, you see. And God forbid you didn't major in the right thing and you got all this debt, right? And then you're trying to purchase a home and start a family, right? And women are more hypergamous than ever. Yeah, good luck with that shit. That's why, again, I sit there and I look at white supremacy. I'm like, I don't know what white supremacy is doing. I mean, I'm just observing. I can only speculate, but I'm like, whatever they're doing is most certainly is not maintaining white supremacy. It might maintain the position of the white elites, the white oligarchy, yes, but the masses, no. And see, once you get below a critical mass, again, they always thought there was a floor for them, that shit would only get so low for them. But once that floor falls out completely, if you think that the bottom, the white folks at the bottom are just going to accept their lot in life, or the white folks that were in the middle and slip to the bottom, if you think that they're not going to have a revolution and storm the Capitol and have somebody's head on a stick like Mary Antoinette and King Louis the Eighth, right? I think, was it King Louis the Eighth or was it 13th? I think it was 13th. Yeah, King Louis the 13th or whatever. If you think that that's not going to happen, if you think that you're not going to have a French Revolution on your hands, you got another thought coming. And that rolls right into why you have all this Democrats and Republicans playing good cop, bad cop when it comes to the Second Amendment. They got to get rid of that Second Amendment, because that Second Amendment is what is preventing them from Muhaha New World Order. That's what's preventing them from moving forward, with that situation. So until they can eliminate the Second Amendment, until they can have more mass shootings and use it, as as who was it say? Who was the guy? It was Eric Holder. Can't let a good tragedy go to waste or something like that. Yeah, yeah. So right now they like mass shootings. They like young men feeling what's the word that I'm looking for? Feeling rejected by society. You know, they like that, because when they snap and they lose it and they go and they shoot the place up, then that just gives them more ammunition to say this is why we need to ban these weapons of war, blah 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 blah. And then once they do that, then now you can't do anything but take it in the ass with a smile. They can they can reduce you down to nothing. Nothing, and you will own nothing and be happy. You don't have a choice. This is what the rest of the world is faced with. That's why you see, terrorist groups and shit like that popping up, right? Because the only way that they can counter shit is through an insurgency. Quiet as is kept. Was what Americans love to forget all the time is that the founding fathers and the revolutionists of the Revolutionary War, it's in the name, were terrorists to the British Crown. They were terrorists in the eyes of King George. And when they signed that Declaration of Independence and John Hancock wrote his big ass signature and everything, they knew that they were signing their own death certificate. If they lost that war, they all would have been hanged. Plain and simple. Hanged, probably quartered, all that Braveheart shit, all that. But see, people forget that. People forget that, things only change when people get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I don't think that American people have gotten there yet. And I think the dangerous part of today versus, the past is just how effective the media is with misinformation, because I do think that a quote unquote race war would pop off before there would be any sort of masses against, the powers that be, because they would just manipulate shit in the media and, get people to turn on each other, not recognizing their commonality of interest based on their class as opposed to based on their race. And the biggest culprits of that are white people, not black people. I see white people running around reverse racism. Black people can be racist too. Like Candace tried to throw that bullshit up there, too. And Cornell West, he co-signed it just to move on. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, black people can be racist. No, black people cannot be racist too. Black people are responding to racism. If black people hate white people, it is for good reason. I know white people don't want to hear that, but black people don't just sit around and go, "Oh yeah, we superior and this, that, and the third." Like, based off of what? I know the Hoteps and the Israelites try to speak it into existence, but we don't have that history of, we conquered this land and we conquered that land and we dropped thermonuclear bombs on this and that person. We don't have that. And the reason why a lot of y'all get caught up, and I'm just going to say this on the side note, the reason why a lot of y'all get caught up, getting slammed and getting, called out on your shit is because, like I said, you know, you guys want to say, oh well, we didn't own any slaves, and today is different. It's a different day, right? But you always want to claim the accomplishments and achievements of the white people of the past. But then when it comes to the negative stuff of the past, oh no, we don't want any of that stuff. The light bulb, yeah, we did that. Freaking, Kitty Hawk and the airplane, we did that. The locomotive, we did that. Steam engines, we did that. As soon as you get to slavery, oh no, we ain't got nothing to do with that. You weren't here when the light bulb was made. You weren't here when the airplane was made. You weren't here when the steam engine was made. But yet somehow, they'll sit there and, you know, claim that well, we weren't here when slavery was made. Okay, so how can you claim all this other shit? That's why y'all get slammed and caught up with that shit. But by and large, overwhelmingly, when black people feel some type of way about white people, it is because of the context of history and the racism and bigotry that persists to this day, coming from white people to black people. And it's been that way. White people trying to run around and act like it's a two-way street, and as though we're playing, a game of civilization or age of empires on our cell phones, and there's Wakanda over there, and they hate us, and we're Rome, and we're over here, and it's even Steven, and it's just a conflict of the people. It's bullshit. No, no. Black people were brought here as slaves. Black people were marginalized and kept as second class citizens. And then they were freed. And then they were second class citizens for another 100 years. And they had to deal with lynchings and sharecropping and then being denied access to capital and, being marginalized, mistreated by the police, discriminated against employment. Yeah, that's all of that. couldn't go to the same schools, had to drink from different water fountains, right? Dumping drugs in the black community, then locking black people up left and right, right? Then black people try to stand up for themselves. And then, you setting the FBI in with COINTELPRO and, J. Edgar Hoover and all that shit, right? Dismantling black people who were trying to, be self sufficient and determine their own destiny. Oh no, fuck that. We can't have that. Burning down their communities. And then what? You expect black people to love you? You expect black people to look at white people and be like, "Oh, y'all just degraded." So no. So every time I hear white people sit there and be like, "No, black people can be racist too, and they hate us like we hate them," no bullshit. Y'all some projecting ass motherfuckers. Plain and simple. But anyway, I just had to add that because these are the things that just keep popping up, and they need to be called out in real time. I mean, why black people sitting around just in their sleep and they wake up like, oh yeah, I hate white people. Like what? No, that's not how it happens. No, how it happens is all years of dealing with the microaggressions, years of dealing with the subtle put downs or the overt puts. Africa's a shithole. All time you guys come from shit. All that type of stuff. You know, you guys come from poverty. You guys don't have anything. Mocking the culture, the disrespect. Oh, can I touch your hair? Let me fuck with it. Oh, your hair is not like we have good hair. You have bad. All of that. Just the same way that y'all don't want to be subject to the LGBT and the them what are they? What's the word that I'm looking for? Them damn, what's the word that I'm looking for? When they're putting the stuff in the kids' heads. What's the word that I'm looking for? I can't think of what the word I'm looking for is. But anyway, right? Y'all don't want to deal with that. Well, we don't want to deal with, you know, uh, all of the stuff that comes with the way that Africa as a continent has been put down, which facilitates an inferiority complex. We don't want to deal with that shit. Oh, you all come from this, and y'all ain't had nothing, y'all ain't built nothing, and y'all ain't do nothing, and all that crap. We don't want to hear that shit. The indoctrination. That's the word I'm looking for. We don't want to be indoctrinated with that bullshit and the misrepresentation of our history. Just the same way that you don't want to be, you don't want your kids being indoctrinated with, the gay BCs and shit. But anyway, I think I'm done. So that's all I gotta say. That's my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe. I'm out. I know that's the second time I said it, but I'm really out this time.